Hi, everybody. You're very welcome again. I feel like we are all friends now on this final day of 7 live streams, or 6 live streams and 1 premiere, to celebrate the launch of my new Eco Printing in the Dirty Pot ebook. Thank you so much. I'm not actually sure if there's anybody watching who hasn't before, but I'm just going to say that my name is Nicola Brown. I live in rural Southeast Ireland. I'm a felt maker and eco printer, and I grow my own vegetation to color my textiles. So do please drop a comment and let us know where you are tuning in from. And then next week, I'm going to compose a map and share all the different locations where people tuned in over the course of the week from around the world. So we started the celebrations on Monday by a rather long video and an intensive session, and I discussed how to achieve crisp and clear prints in the dirty pot. So when I say I'm an eco printer, I work 99.9% of the time using my pot as mordant. I don't use the traditional powdered metal salts that many eco printers use to fix their color on their fabric. So I specialize in using the metal composition of the pot and also the actual pipes that I roll my bundles on to help achieve lasting prints and color. What this does mean is that there is limited vegetation that I can print with that actually does give really good prints. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you can't get good prints from all sorts of different vegetation. But unlike working with mordants, you don't tend to get good prints from flowers when you're working in the dirty pot, unless at a later date you start working with tannin and iron. So I'm just smiling at some of these comments about the dress. So this is obviously the dress that I was wearing in the thumbnail on this YouTube video. And in fact, that dress, it's a cashmere merino blend. It's about 70% cashmere and about well, if it's 70% cashmere, it's obviously going to be 30% merino. And I bought it for, I think it was $4 in a thrift store in Canada. So it's just incredible what you can find in thrift stores. And once you understand all the basic principles about eco printing in the dirty pot, so once you understand the fabric that prints best, how to wrap your bundles, how to tie them tightly, I don't have any fear, and you shouldn't either. If you follow the step-by-step process that I shared on Monday in video 1, or if you have invested in the ebook and you follow the step-by-step process in the ebook, you too will be able to print luxury fabrics like cashmere with no difficulty whatsoever, because it is actually agitation and heat that usually causes animal fiber to felt and to shrink, whereas with eco printing, we're not agitating in the pot. So that's a very important point. So on Monday, we discussed the basics and stripping it back to the basics. I had a lovely chat with Caroline Nixon, a really good friend of mine and a wonderful eco printer. And Caroline did stress that there is so much information available at the moment. And when you look on, forums and groups, for example, on Facebook, there are so many wonderful eco prints being created, but there are also so many wonderful different ways that you can do it. And it's very, very important at the beginning, if you're working with the dirty pot, just to strip it completely back to the basics and try not to be tempted to add other vegetation or leaves on your bundles or other vegetation or leaves into the pot. Because what happens is the tannin in the leaves, the composition of bark, for example, that will have an effect with your rusty metal. It will alter the color of your pot liquid, but more importantly, it may prevent you getting good prints on your garments. So for all of you who are saying about the dress, I mean, it is a really cool dress. Let me see if I can pull the picture up now. It is exceptionally comfortable to wear. My friend Meredy, great friend Meredy Keith, she took this photo of me. Believe it or not, it was slightly raining. She and her husband were visiting here from California. She did a 10-day retreat with me, and then we had a holiday where they stayed here for about 7 or 8 nights afterwards. So she just took that just when they were leaving. But you can see that there's loads of depth to the color of this dress. It was just a creamy white when I bought it, and that dress was processed with loads and loads of rusty metal in the pot. And can you see at the very bottom of the dress how it's darker? That's where the cast iron pipe would have been. So never be afraid of using it, and of using the cast iron, and don't be afraid of rust if you want to achieve prints like that. So Mary, I'll answer your question about paper in just a second. I see that down there. I'm just going to whip through what we did earlier in the week, just for people who weren't here. So day 1 was all about achieving prints in the dirty pots, stripping it back to the basics. Session 2 on Tuesday was all about which vegetation to use. Now in the book, I have lists of vegetation from different parts of the world, but that list is not extensive. There are suggestions. For example, when I was facilitating a workshop in Tucson before, in Arizona, I discovered a marvelous plant there. It's called African sumac, and that gives the most incredible prints in the dirty pot. Absolutely beautiful. It's such a graphic leaf. It's a leaf with 3 little prongs. It's sort of that shape. And oh my goodness, how I would love to have that growing here in Ireland. So there are suggested types of vegetation to use for different parts of the world. But what I like to do is not to get wrapped up in trying to use 51 or 151 types of vegetation. I like to learn and experiment with different metals and different pipes and different pot liquids to achieve different colors in my finished piece. Then on Wednesday was all about cellulose fabric. And this top that I'm wearing, I'll just stand up slightly, and I am hoping that my sheepdog, my collie Pip, isn't making it difficult for you guys to hear me. But this here, this top is made from organic HEM with that letter P on the end, that word that shall not be named here on YouTube. So this is an organic fabric. This is actually a fleece fabric, whereas the other organic HEM and the P was French terry. This is a fleece fabric, and it really took the prints very beautifully. It actually feels rather like velvet. This came from a company in England, and I really like it. So these prints are from sycamore, and I folded it. So you can see almost like a squarish or rectangle outline there. So rather than rolling this particular piece on a pipe, I folded it and I tied it. So you can get super prints on cellulose fabric by using rust water. And I do have a video on YouTube going into that in a little bit, and I give clear directions in the book for making your own rust water. Now this here is the French terry top that I was wearing the other day, and these are cotinus or smoke bush prints on cellulose fabric. Again, a 40-second dip in rust water is all that you need. And so if you'd like to have the guidebook so you can dive deeper into this wonderful dirty pot process, I'm just going to drop the link now into the chat for the book. I know that many of you who are here today, I know that you've already bought that. So thank you so much for that. I'm just going to drop that link in there. And I am going to see here about some questions. And let me see. Oh, and I should just also say there is a special launch bonus, and that is going to be Stopping this evening at 1 minute to midnight Irish time. So there are a few more hours left to grab that. And that bonus that I'm giving is actually a really nice little section from my last intensive 6-module online workshop. It's just a little bit taken from that about eco-printing upcycled clothing. If anybody's having a problem with Pip there in the background, could you please just drop that into the comments, because I don't really want to have to lock her outside, but she's really making a noise there. So anyway, let me just see here now. Okay, so Mary has a question here. Is it all right to process paper bundles at the same time as fabric? Absolutely, Mary. And processing paper is one of the sections that I have, one of the chapters in the book. And often what I will do, here's a picture of paper. Often what I will do is I will just have all the fabric bundles submerged in the dirty pot, and then I will add paper bundles. Now, normally I like submerging them, but I actually don't mind if they're half in and half out of the liquid, because that gives interesting color around the outside. And in fact, this here is this particular one was a very old, this is an old image. I didn't have any dirty liquid in the pot for this one. I just actually had vinegar and water. And that's one reason that the cotinus leaves in this particular slide or print there, they were quite a blue color. So I'm just looking down here. Dog, no problem. Yes, thanks. In case other dogs bark in sympathy. Yes, if I knew that Pip would be as quiet as she sometimes is, I would happily have her here. But actually at the moment we've had a very misty day and there are foxes and they are going absolutely crazy outside. So she's going crazy inside. So that's why I don't have her upstairs here with me. So yeah, Pip is very excited about that. And while we've Puerto Rico in the house, this is fantastic. Southern California. Okay, so this is an interesting question. So Lenora, I hope that's how you pronounce your name. So first of all, I don't know anybody even who uses mordants who actually gets color from the ginkgo leaf. But absolutely you can use them as a resist, but you won't get a color. So yes, you could lay them down on your fabric and you could just cover the fabric in onion skins, and then you would get a beautiful outline on your fabric. This book is like an absolute Bible. It has over 70 pages for the real foundation of getting to grips with the dirty pot. I don't go into working with tannin and irons in the book without powdered mordants, because that's something else that I do. And that will be for a later ebook, some more advanced techniques, because I feel that unless people grasp the basics, it's impossible to get to grips with the dirty pot. But certainly when you come to using, or when you come to doing tannin and iron reactions, you can use leaves that don't give a color, and then they will leave a resist. And then what I particularly like doing is I set up an organic indigo vat. Now, when I say organic, I mean that the indigo itself is organic, and I set it up as a ferrous sulfate vat. And if I then dip my eco-printed pieces that were printed in the dirty pot, if I then dip them into the organic indigo vat, the ferrous sulfate vat, there's then a reaction with the ferrous sulfate and the tannin that was in the leaves. And sometimes they come up the most incredible coppery color. So those sorts of things are maybe processes that when my new membership platform launches at the end of January, that if people are interested, that will be sort of guided by the people who are in the membership. It's going to be a limited membership that will be guided by the people and me, and we can explore new processes and techniques. But I really do enjoy over dyeing, eco printing from the dirty pot with organic indigo. This is very interesting. So that's really, really, really interesting, Jane, because most people are trying to get blue with the cotinus. Just maybe drop a little comment down in there on what fabric, how have you treated the fabric, and is it in the dirty pot or with the mordant? So if you just drop that in a comment, please, and I will keep an eye out for that. On the paper, yeah, I wanted blue because I don't usually get blue. So when you have the iron with the, that was because it was a lot of vinegar in that. It was just vinegar and water, Jane. So I don't have the image to show you here, but usually I get very dark colors. Oh, hang on, I do have one second. Yeah, this is the color there that I typically get on cellulose fabric with cotinus, and on silk and wool, I typically get purple. So I don't get the blue. So that's interesting as the discharge. That again, that's not something that we're doing in this particular book. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so this is quite a good question, Mary. I'm very impressed with the questions you're asking. So is it all right for the fabric bundles to contact the metal pieces in the pot during the entire boiling time? Yes and no. There is absolutely no problem with bundles in the pot touching metal or touching other bundles. No problem whatsoever. However, if you cram your pot too tight and the bundles are sort of wedged in, what happens in that case is that some areas of the bundle are going to get hotter than others, and that can lead to banding of color. And if you're not careful, it can also lead to potential burn on your fabric. Now, it's much more likely fabric will burn during steaming if you let the steaming water run out. But I would just say, providing you have a large pot with plenty of pot liquid, there's no problem with bundles touching each other, no problem with fabric touching metal, etc., etc. When you're processing in the dirty pot, that is not a problem. Yeah, I can imagine, one second, dandelion leaves. Yes, I can imagine that dandelion leaves must be excellent. Yeah, that sounds like a really nice resist. I'm thinking of shapes. It's also quite fun if you have leaves that print really well to cut them into shapes or punch holes in them. And I'm always looking for leaves that have had nibbles out of them. I'm not looking for that perfect leaf. I'm looking for a leaf with interest. Yeah, so Atsmuna, I really am sorry if I haven't pronounced your name correctly. Yep. I share how I overprint in the book, and that is always great fun, and it's never a disaster. But everybody has prints that don't print well at certain times, so it's always nice to have a way to rescue that fabric. So maybe I'll just go back through what is in the book. I know some of you who were here yesterday will have seen this before, but other people may well not have. Now, this is just a little bit about it. So that's the cover. Okay, one second now. Apologies. It's a little. I am obviously tired at the end of the week. Okay, I don't seem to have the first lots of pages, but the first pages go all through the fabric choice, preparing the fabric, supplies, where you get the fabric, setting up your eco printing pot, the best type of pots, the various pots, for example, copper, aluminium, cast iron. I give samples or examples of pieces that I have printed in the various pots or wrapped around the various metals, so you can see the effects you might get. Then we move on to chapter 13. That's actually processing the bundles, then opening them, shadowing, which I really love, but some people don't. How to neutralize and wash out your fabric, because many people are really, really worried about the fact that if their fabric is in direct contact with iron and rusty metal, that it's going to have a really detrimental effect on the fabric. I personally am fine with it, because if you make a powdered mordant such as ferrous sulfate and you are traditionally mordanting your fabric, there's a higher concentration of iron in the powdered solution that you make, and then you're going to bring the liquid, that solution, to a high temperature, almost a boil, and you're going to hold your fabric in it at the high temperature for 1 hour. It's a much stronger solution of iron. So if your fabric is just in the dirty pot and rolled around an iron pipe for an hour, or a cup, well, longer than an hour, there isn't as strong an effect. And for me, silk is probably the thing that will feel the harshest when it initially comes out of the pot. When you open it, sometimes you get little rusty bits of metal on the silk fabric, but once you neutralize it and wash it out, which is all carefully explained in the book, there is no problem, and I haven't had things deteriorate even with time. So I gave tips about adjusting the color in your pot, about reusing it, about disposing of it if you want to dispose of it, different ways of rolling and tying and clamping, suggestions how you can achieve different results, and then move on to the overprinting, which was your question, Atsmona. So overprinting, and I show a couple of examples of that. Then, because many people are interested in steaming and barriers, I've put a section in, but I don't go into it in huge depth, because it's not something that I recommend as a beginner. Like with the dirty pot, the whole concept is putting your pieces into the pot liquid. However, you will get different results if you steam over the dirty pot liquid or if you steam over clear water in a stainless steel pot. And you also get different results again if you steam over just plain rust water with no vegetation in it. So really, I do give a few notes about steaming, and I also just give an absolutely super short explanation of barriers, things you can use as a barrier, and how you would roll a piece up with the barrier. Then eco printing on paper, and the book itself is finished. I'm just writing up the checklist. So those of you who have already ordered the book, it will only be about another couple of hours. Everything will be totally finished. My great buddy, wonderful textile artist, Kim Titichai, has already read the book. And while I feel it's never going to be perfect, I'm always going to want to set things out slightly differently. She really thought it was good to go. So I'm just going to let it go. And you're going to have that within a couple of hours. And those of you who invest in the book before 11:59 p.m. GMT tonight, which is Sunday the 19th of December, you will also get that bonus of the mini online workshop where I share about eco printing, upcycle clothing, and there are little videos in that. So Lynn here has a question. So how to avoid the tie lines? And and here we have an answer. This is great. So Adriana is coming in and saying use stretch bandages. So they are really good bandages to wrap them around and avoid the tie lines. But for me, part of the excitement of the dirty pot process is working out where the tie lines are going to go and utilizing the tie lines. So I'm just going to go back to the image that's on the cover of the book. So if you see here, can you see this is a felt pod, and the golden color sort of further up the pod is actually where the pot liquid was, and there were some leaves under the pot liquid, and then the lower portion, that's a paler color. Can you see the way that paler color, the curve of the top of the paler color actually echoes the shape at the top where the tail where the pod is hanging from the tail. So I like to play around with the shape of the piece that I'm rolling. So with experience, you can work out and get your tie marks where you want them. And Nini here also says she loves the tie ones, but definitely you can use the bandage to avoid them, or you could roll a piece of cotton sheeting around afterwards. After you've rolled your piece up, then just roll it in a piece of cotton sheeting, and the cotton will then get the tie marks. I love this image too, Tammy. I think as well, the fact that it's just hanging from a eucalyptus branch, it's a professional photograph. I didn't take it, but I just sent the pod up with a couple of other pieces. I wasn't able to go to the photographer, and this was the image I liked the most from the photo shoot. So I'm going to go back because some people may not have seen these images from yesterday. So I'm just going to go through these quickly, and then I'm going to answer any final questions. And then I think we'll wrap up this week because I want to make sure that you all have your ebooks in your inbox within a couple of hours. And then I'm going to have a late supper and relax. Tomorrow morning, I get my booster jab. So these have all been done in a dirty pot. So this one here is silk. This dress was printed in a dirty pot. However, when I say a dirty pot, this particular pot was stainless steel. It was when I was in Kentucky, and this particular pot had to have plenty of rust water and aluminium foil or aluminum foil in it to help influence the color. So this pot was not as dirty. So these brown prints are from catalpa. The small green prints are from the front of the catalpa. And that very large green print near the bottom, that is from a leaf that in Ireland we would call dock, but I never fully identified what it was. It was a weed in a damp patch in Kentucky. And if you notice where the tie marks are in this case, in this dress, I wanted the tie marks to be at the top, just across the bust area. So that's where they are in that piece there. So then we move on. This is eucalyptus. It's bark and leaves on lamb's wool, plenty of rust in the pot. These prints are from eucalyptus bark on vintage French linen that had a 40-second dip in rust water. This just shows the shadowing effect or the repeat printing effect. So you can see there was a fold up the center line, and you can see that piece with, it looks like a slightly rude thing, which will remain nameless, sticking up there. When that piece of fabric was folded on the center line, there actually was only one piece of bark that was that shape, but there was so much dye within that particular piece of bark that it continued to print further up the leaf or up the scarf. Sorry, that was a silk scarf. And then this here is shadowing. So this is a heavy silk noil, eucalyptus prints, and where the leaf made a direct contact with the fabric, the print is green, and I rolled it up on itself, and it was processed in an aluminium pot with loads of rusty metal. And in fact, the purplish color is where the dye from the back of the leaf sort of worked its way through the silk as well. So even though this was a heavy silk, I really liked printing with this specific tree. We never were able to identify what it was, but it was a tree opposite where I was staying in Australia. And yes, shadow printing is what some people call ghost printing. Yes, it is. So that's eucalyptus. And then sometimes this one here is the cotinus on the HEM with the P at the end of it. So this is cotinus. The dark prints are from the back of the leaf making direct contact with the fabric, and the lighter prints with more of an outline are where the front of the leaf makes contact with the fabric. And then those dark spots are where tannin is coming out from cut ends of leaves, and they are then having a big reaction with the iron in the pot and the iron that I folded this on, and that's why you sometimes get those dark spots. Now, because I didn't roll this piece, you can't see the repeat prints from that tannin iron reaction as much. But if I had actually rolled that piece, there would be dots going a lot of the way down the length of it. And then this final slide here is the eucalyptus leaves and an onion skin scarf. I see that Tammy says she's collecting bark like crazy. Okay, so here we go. Well, yes, I mean, I just share what I do to process paper. So yes, that's in the book. And I do not, I'm not a chemist, and I'm working in the dirty pot, and I am not somebody, I work more intuitively. I'm not saying that's right or it's wrong, but even when I'm working with the organic indigo vat, I did get litmus paper, and I got all sorts of things for testing for pH, and I just found I found it too confusing. I found when I work with my indigo vats, I have a 240 litre vat and 140 litres. That I get a sense of what's happening, and I can see from the bloom on top of the vat, so I don't worry about the pH whatsoever. So I do give details about printing on paper. I give recommendations for paper. I haven't found, with the exception of Fabriano paper, I haven't found any more expensive paper prints better. In some cases, I have actually discovered that the paper is more inclined to disintegrate. But many people who I've taught have very successfully printed on paper using what I shared. And they are also, some of them are paper makers and some of them are print makers. So I think it's all in the book, but I don't discuss the pH or the stability. And in relation to light fastness for anything, whether it's fabric or paper, you shouldn't hang your eco prints, for example, opposite very strong sunlight or light. But equally, if you have any sort of fabric like curtains or carpets, there is an element of fading that is built into fabric. So it's important to understand that. But having said all of that, I wash my pieces time after time after time in the washing machine. I have pieces that are exposed to sunlight in my own house, and they have not come to any harm whatsoever, even after years. And like this piece that I'm wearing myself, I cannot tell you how many times this has been through my washing machine. So the only thing I do is I make sure that I wash it with olive oil soap. And I just find there obviously is science involved in the dirty pot as well. And I'm always careful to say I work without powdered mordants, because the metal of the pot itself is acting like potash mordant, or your metal pipes, or your homemade rust water. But I just work in an intuitive way, and that's how I enjoy working, and it's what works for me. So oh yeah, okay. So I think yeah, so from the clothing perspective, it depends what I'm printing, and I give very clear instructions or I explain very clearly what I do with my fabric. And the biggest danger is if you do make things too alkaline, or if you do make things too acidic, you can make your protein-based fabric disintegrate. So I always would prepare my wool and silk in a separate to my cellulose fabric, and I would add in either some washing soda or sodium carbonate to cellulose fabric if I had it to hand, because I feel it really cleans it very, very well, and it preps it very nicely for receiving the natural dye color. But I would never in a million years use sodium carbonate or even a teaspoon of washing soda on silk or wool. So I just give the directions, clear, simple directions in the book. So I think it's just good for people to, if it's not working, I would say 99% of the time you haven't stripped it back to the basics enough. You're trying to overcomplicate it. Eco printing in the dirty pot is simple. So I would just like to thank you all so much for joining me, whether today is your first night or whether you have been here for the whole week, as I know some of you have. It's been just great. I'm going to miss you. My house isn't, because my house is like an absolute, it's like as if the contents of a trash can have been poured everywhere. I've nothing left to eat with, no plates clean, no cutlery, no saucepans clean. But anyway, it's just been wonderful, and it's been so fantastic to see the response to the bootcamp and the book. I'm going to give you one final chance to ask me any last minute questions, but if you don't have any, I'm going to go off. I'm going to just write up those checklists really quickly, and then I am going to I'm going to get the link to download the ebook and the link for access to the bonus early bird online workshop. That's all going to go out within the next couple of hours. And then from then on, anybody who orders the book, I'm going to have it set up automatically. So up until 11:59, that will go out automatically to you tonight, and then after that you'll miss the bonus. So if you are interested, I cannot urge you enough to order now so that you can get the bonus. And okay, so here are a few last minute comments. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm hoping I won't have anything because I have to head to Dublin to help with the family the next day. And this is brilliant, Tammy. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mary. This is great. Thank you so much. Sometime, for those of you who have bought the book very, very early, within the first 24 hours, you can all tell me if I'm pronouncing your names incorrectly once we have our Zoom together. Thank you so much, Evelyn. Thank you so much. This is wonderful. I'll miss you too. And I really love the images you've been posting already. So that's just fantastic. Wonderful, Tracy. This is just really great. And thank you so much, Ella. Brilliant. Thank you so much for all these lovely comments. So not long for the ebook. So so Chilean in Germany. Wow, that's a journey. Okay, so thank you all so much. Hugs back. And I'm just going to leave it here with Aranita. I hope that's how you pronounce your name. So thank you so much, everybody. It has been an absolute blast. I will definitely do a follow-up live in a few weeks for people who've bought the book, who might have questions about it after then. And if you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, I post videos every week, and they are about primarily eco-printing, felt making, and I do the odd one as well about growing my own dye plants. So thank you all so much. It's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your custom buying the book. And thank you so much. That's brilliant, Mary. I think it's Mary. And I'm going to say for the last time this week, over and out from Clasheen.